It's time to grab your favorite drink and settle in. Today's story on AGS Stories is one you won't want to miss. Trust and transparency are the cornerstones of any strong relationship, but what happens when that trust is shattered by the people who are supposed to love and protect us the most? Today on AGS Stories, we dive into a tale of betrayal, manipulation, and one woman's journey to reclaim her life and freedom. My husband lied about our savings to fund his parents' lavish lifestyle, and they all thought I'd just let it slide. When family becomes the source of pain instead of support, the betrayal cuts deeper than almost anything else. But this story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about courage, standing up for yourself, and finding the strength to move forward. Let's dive in. Imagine this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, your laptop glowing in the dim evening light. The numbers on the screen don't make sense. Thousands of dollars transferred to an account you've never seen before. At first, you think it's a mistake. But as you dig deeper, the transactions stretch back months, maybe even years. Each one feels like a punch to the gut, and you realize the person you trusted the most has been lying to you all along. That's exactly what happened to Rachel, a 34-year-old nurse from Chicago. Rachel thought she had the perfect partnership with her husband Mike, a 36-year-old aspiring artist. Their life together was built on what she believed was trust and transparency, shared accounts, budget spreadsheets, dreams of buying a home and starting a family. But all of that came crashing down when she discovered Mike had been secretly funneling thousands of dollars from their savings to his parents without her knowledge. At first, Mike's parents, Carolyn and Richard, seemed kind and supportive, even welcoming Rachel into the family with open arms when she and Mike got married. But over time, Rachel started noticing small cracks in the facade. Carolyn's sharp comments about Rachel's career choices, the subtle digs about her not being family-focused enough, and Richard's sudden business setbacks all hinted at something deeper. The real bombshell dropped when Rachel stumbled across months of financial transfers to an account under Carolyn and Richard's name. Tens of thousands of dollars, money meant for their future, was gone. Confronting Mike only made things worse. He dismissed her concerns, calling her weird about money, and defended his actions as helping family. To him, it was loyalty. To Rachel, it was betrayal. This story isn't just about financial deceit. It's about trust being broken, the struggle to fight against manipulation, and one woman's determination to take back control of her life. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into Rachel's journey, a tale of love, betrayal, and the cost of putting family above everything else. The first time I saw the $3,000 transfer, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe I had clicked the wrong button, or maybe the bank had made an error. But the more I stared at the screen, the harder it became to convince myself of that. The account number didn't look familiar. My stomach churned as I scrolled back through our transaction history, the pattern becoming glaringly obvious. Another $4,000 the month before, then $2,500 the month before that. It wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been going on for almost a year. My hands trembled as I checked the account name tied to the transactions. Carolyn and Richard Weber, Mike's parents. I felt a cold sweat break out on my back as my mind raced. Why hadn't Mike told me? This was our joint savings account, the money we'd spent years building together. Every late shift at the hospital, every skipped dinner out, every sacrifice we made was meant for our future. A home, kids, maybe a road trip down the coast once we finally had the time. But now, all of that seemed like a cruel joke. Rachel, have you seen my sketchbooks? Mike's voice floated down from his studio upstairs, as casual as ever. My heart pounded. The man who had promised me honesty, who had vowed to share everything with me, had been lying all along. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Mike, can you come down here for a minute? The wooden stairs creaked as he made his way down, paint smudges on his jeans and that lopsided smile I used to find so charming. What's up? He asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. For a moment, I almost lost my nerve, but the laptop in front of me reminded me why I had to do this. I turned the screen toward him. Do you want to explain these transfers? His smile faltered. For a moment, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then, just as quickly he recovered, his expression shifting into something smoother, more practiced. Oh, that. It's for my parents. They've been having some trouble with their mortgage. I stared at him, disbelief mingling with anger. $7,000 last month, Mike? Without telling me? That's not a little help. That's our future. That's the down payment for a house we've been saving for. They needed it, Rachel. What was I supposed to do? Let them lose their house? His tone was defensive, as if he were the victim here. You were supposed to talk to me, I snapped. We're supposed to be partners. How could you keep something like this from me? Mike ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of blue paint near his temple. You wouldn't have understood, he said. You've always been weird about money. Weird about money? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my own. You mean I want to know where our savings are going? You mean I'm not okay with you draining our account behind my back? They raised me, Rachel, he said, his voice rising. They gave me everything. I owe them. And what about what you owe me? I shot back. What about the promises we made to each other? What about our future? He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen, and I saw his mother's name flash across it. Of course, Carolyn always had impeccable timing. I need to take this, he said, already turning away. No, I said firmly, standing up and slamming the laptop shut. You need to explain why you've been lying to me for months. I haven't been lying, he said, exasperated. I just didn't want to worry you. Didn't want to worry me? Or didn't want me to stop you from bankrolling your parents' lifestyle? My voice cracked, but I didn't care. They've been manipulating you, Mike. They've been manipulating us, and you're letting them. His face hardened. You don't understand my relationship with them. You're right, I said bitterly. I don't understand lying to your spouse. I don't understand stealing from our future to fund their present. His phone buzzed again. This time, he answered it, turning his back on me. Hi, Mom. Yeah, I'll be there soon. Just need to grab a few things. I stood there, watching him walk away from our marriage one step at a time, up the creaking stairs to his studio. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt invisible. I felt like I was screaming into a void, and no one, not Mike, not his parents, cared enough to listen. I sat down at the table, staring at the laptop in front of me. The screen seemed to glow accusingly in the dim light. How had I missed this? How had I not seen the signs? Somewhere upstairs, Mike was probably already arranging another transfer, another betrayal dressed up as filial duty. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But more than anything, I wanted answers. I wasn't just fighting Mike's deception. I was fighting against Carolyn's influence, against years of manipulation I had been too blind to see. For 3 years, I had tried to be the perfect wife, the supportive partner. And for what? To be treated like an outsider in my own marriage? I need your advice. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you like this? Am I overreacting, or is this something I can't ignore? How do you come back from something like this? Because right now, I don't see how we do. Rachel's story quickly caught the attention of readers, sparking a heated discussion in the comments section. People were divided, with many sympathizing with Rachel and urging her to take action, while others tried to see the situation from Mike's perspective. Regardless of the angle, everyone agreed that the situation was far from simple. One of the most liked comments came from Savvy Finance Mom, who wrote, "Rachel, this is a massive betrayal. Money isn't just money in a marriage. It's about trust, communication, and building a future together. Mike didn't just keep this from you. He made a choice to prioritize his parents over your shared dreams. I understand his desire to help them, but doing so in secret crosses a line. You need to consult a lawyer immediately and protect yourself financially. This isn't something to brush under the rug." Another user, at ArtLover92, took a more balanced approach, saying, "I get why you're upset, Rachel. I'd feel the same way if my partner did this without telling me. But as someone whose parents have needed help financially, I can understand Mike's position too. That said, he should have trusted you enough to talk to you about it. Marriage is about partnership, not unilateral decisions. Maybe counseling could help you both communicate better and find a way forward." On the other hand, at Family First always sided more with Mike, offering a different perspective. "Rachel, it sounds like Mike was in a tough spot. Parents aren't replaceable, and sometimes we have to step up for family, even if it's inconvenient. Yes, he should have told you, but maybe he didn't want to stress you out or start a fight. Have you considered sitting down with him and his parents to talk this through as a family? This might be a case of miscommunication rather than outright betrayal. The responses showed how polarizing the situation was. Many readers empathized with Rachel, recognizing the emotional weight of discovering that someone you love and trust has been keeping secrets. To them, Mike's actions weren't just about money, they symbolized a deeper disregard for Rachel's feelings and their partnership. The advice leaned heavily toward encouraging Rachel to protect herself and set clear boundaries. Some even suggested that this might be a deal-breaker. Still, there were a significant number of people who urged Rachel to consider Mike's perspective. They pointed out that filial duty can be a powerful motivator, and that his intentions, while poorly executed, might not have been malicious. These commenters advised Rachel to explore whether there was a way to rebuild trust and address the root cause of the secrecy. What became clear from the comments was that Rachel had a difficult decision ahead of her. Should she prioritize protecting herself financially and emotionally, potentially walking away from the marriage? Or should she try to understand Mike's perspective and work toward rebuilding trust, even if it meant a long and challenging road? The diversity of opinions left Rachel with much to consider. But one thing was certain, she wasn't alone in her struggle. Strangers from all walks of life had come together to offer their insights, giving Rachel the courage to face whatever came next. What would you do in Rachel's shoes? Would you fight to save the marriage or walk away to protect your future? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below. After reading through the flood of comments on my story, I realized I needed to stop waiting for answers and start taking action. The suggestions to consult a lawyer, protect my finances, and dig deeper into Mike's actions were all beginning to feel like my only lifelines. I started by taking screenshots of every suspicious transaction I could find. Months of transfers, some small, others painfully large, all flowed into his parents' account. It was like watching a timeline of betrayal unfold in front of me, each number a slap in the face. I couldn't help but wonder what else I didn't know. What had I missed while working double shifts and trusting Mike to handle our finances? Determined to get answers, I reached out to my best friend, Sarah. She'd been my rock through thick and thin, and I knew she'd give me the push I needed. "Rachel, this isn't just bad judgment. This is manipulation," she said bluntly after I told her everything. "You need to see a lawyer. Today." She wasn't wrong. The next morning, I found myself sitting in the polished office of a family law attorney, Miss Carter, a sharp-eyed woman with a no-nonsense demeanor. As I laid out my situation, her expression shifted from professional neutrality to thinly veiled anger. "Rachel, this isn't just about hiding money," she said. "If what you're describing is accurate, your husband and his parents may be committing financial fraud, especially if they've been using your joint funds without your consent." The word fraud sent a chill through me. It wasn't just a betrayal anymore, it was potentially criminal. Miss Carter advised me to gather as much evidence as possible, freeze the joint account, and seriously consider separating my finances from Mike. It was the first time I'd felt like I had control over the situation, but the weight of what lay ahead was crushing. When I got home, I found Mike's parents, Carolyn and Richard, sitting in my kitchen. Carolyn was perched on a stool, her designer handbag placed conspicuously on the counter like some kind of trophy, while Richard leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "Rachel, we need to talk," Carolyn began, her tone dripping with condescension. I crossed my arms, my heart pounding in my chest. "I didn't invite you here." "Mike told us about your concerns," she continued, completely ignoring my hostility. "We understand this is a stressful time for you, but family comes first. You'll need to let this go." "Let this go?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been draining our savings for months, and you expect me to just brush it off because family comes first?" Richard finally spoke, his tone dismissive. "It's not like we were stealing. Mike made the decision to help us. If anything, you should be thanking us for raising such a loyal son." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Their arrogance was astounding. "Loyalty doesn't mean lying to your spouse and jeopardizing your future," I shot back. "And for the record, This isn't your money to take." Carolyn's smile turned icy. "Rachel, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Mike is doing what's right. If you can't understand that, maybe you're not the right partner for him." Her words cut deep, but they also lit a fire in me. "You're right," I said, stepping closer to the counter. "Maybe I'm not the right partner for someone who lies, manipulates, and lets his parents control his life. But let me make one thing clear. I'm not letting this go." With that, I grabbed my laptop and walked out of the room, leaving them sitting there, stunned. I locked myself in the bedroom and called Sarah. "It's worse than I thought," I told her, recounting the encounter. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They think they're untouchable." Sarah's voice was firm. "Then it's time to show them they're not." That night, I went through every financial record I could find, piecing together a clearer picture of what Mike and his parents had been doing. It wasn't just the monthly transfers. There were charges for luxury vacations, spa weekends, and expensive dinners, all while Mike had been telling me we needed to tighten our belts for his art career. But the final straw came when I discovered the truth about their house. For months, Mike had claimed the money was going toward his parents' mortgage, but a quick search revealed that their home had been paid off 3 years ago, before we were even married. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. They'd lied about everything. Every penny they took wasn't for survival, it was for indulgence. They weren't struggling, they were thriving at my expense. When Mike came home that night, I confronted him with everything. The transactions, the vacations, the lie about the mortgage. At first he tried to deny it, but when I showed him the evidence, his shoulders slumped. "Rachel, I didn't have a choice," he said weakly. "You always had a choice," I snapped, "and every time you chose them over me." He looked at me, his eyes filled with something that might have been regret. "I thought I could fix it before you found out. I didn't want to hurt you." "Well, congratulations," I said, my voice breaking. "You've hurt me more than you could ever imagine." I didn't sleep that night. While Mike retreated to his studio, I stayed in the bedroom, staring at the ceiling and replaying the events of the day. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on me, but beneath it, there was a spark of determination. They thought I'd let this go. They thought I'd stay quiet, play nice, and let them keep taking from me, but they were wrong. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning, I made another call to Ms. Carter. "I want to move forward," I told her. "Whatever it takes, I'm ready." Because if Mike and his parents wanted to play games with my life, they were about to find out just how far I was willing to go to protect it. After sharing my latest updates, uncovering the fraudulent activities, the lies about the mortgage, and Mike's continued defense of his parents, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, there was a small sense of relief in finally having clarity. On the other hand, the betrayal stung even more deeply now that I fully understood the extent of it. As I read through the new wave of comments on my story, I saw that my struggle had struck a chord with so many people, some of whom had faced similar situations. Their words gave me strength, but they also raised some questions I hadn't yet considered. One of the most supportive comments came from Justice for All, who wrote, "Rachel, you are absolutely right to take a stand. Mike and his parents have been exploiting your trust and hard work for far too long. What they're doing isn't just dishonest, it's cruel. You've already shown so much courage by gathering evidence and consulting a lawyer. Keep pushing forward and don't let them manipulate you into feeling guilty. You deserve better than this." Reading that comment felt like a lifeline. It validated everything I was feeling and reminded me that I wasn't being unreasonable or overreacting. For so long, I had doubted myself, questioning if I was the one in the wrong. But hearing others echo my frustration helped solidify my resolve to keep fighting for what was fair. At the same time, there were others who urged me to tread carefully. A user named Family Over Everything commented, "Rachel, I understand why you're upset, but I think going public with this might not be the best move. It could destroy not only Mike's reputation, but also your own, especially if his family retaliates. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout? Maybe there's a way to resolve this privately without involving lawyers and public scrutiny." Their comment gave me pause. I wasn't afraid of the Thompsons anymore, but the idea of a messy public fight was daunting. Did I really want to let this story spiral into something even more complicated? Still, the truth was the truth, and I didn't see how keeping quiet would help me reclaim my life. The comments reflected a split. Some encouraged me to fight for justice no matter the cost, while others urged caution and compromise. Both perspectives had merit, and I couldn't ignore the risks of my decisions. But in the end, I knew this much. I was done sacrificing my future to protect people who had no problem tearing me down. What do you think? Should I push forward with exposing everything or find a way to resolve this privately? Let me know your thoughts. The confrontation with Mike and his parents was inevitable, but I never imagined how intense it would become. After weeks of gathering evidence, consulting my lawyer, and uncovering the truth about the extent of their lies, I was ready to take my life back. What I wasn't ready for was the wave of emotions that hit me as I stood face to face with the people who had turned my marriage into a web of deceit. It happened at Mike's gallery opening, a night that should have been about celebrating his work, but for me, it marked the beginning of the end. The tension between us had been building for weeks, and I could feel it simmering beneath the surface as I entered the room. Mike was busy charming potential buyers with that same easy smile that used to make me feel so safe. Now, it just made my stomach churn. Margaret and Richard were there too, mingling effortlessly with the crowd, as if they hadn't stolen tens of thousands of dollars from me. Margaret's laugh carried across the room, grating against my nerves. She had a way of pretending everything was perfect, even when the world around her was crumbling. But tonight, I wasn't going to let her hide behind her facade any longer. I waited until the room was quieter, the crowd thinning as people drifted toward the bar. Then I approached Mike, holding a folder filled with evidence in my hand. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Mike's smile faltered, and he glanced nervously at Margaret, who was already making her way toward us. "Not here," he muttered under his breath. "Here is fine," I said firmly. "I'm done waiting." Margaret arrived just in time to hear my next words. "I know everything. The transfers, the lies about the mortgage, the vacations you took with my money. It's all here." I held up the folder, my hands trembling only slightly. Margaret's face didn't betray much at first, but her eyes darted toward Mike, silently urging him to take control. "Rachel, let's not make a scene," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "This isn't a scene, Margaret," I said, my voice rising. "This is the truth. You've been stealing from me, manipulating Mike, and using our marriage as a cover for your greed." The room grew quieter as more people turned to watch. Mike looked panicked, his usual composure cracking under the pressure. "Rachel, please, we can talk about this later," he pleaded. "No, we can't," I said, shaking my head. "I've spent months being ignored, lied to, and dismissed. This ends now." I turned to Margaret, whose mask was slipping fast. "You told me to let this go, that family comes first, but you've never treated me like family. You've treated me like a bank account, and I'm done." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "If you think I'm bluffing, think again. I've already spoken to my lawyer, and the authorities have everything they need to investigate your fraudulent activities. You have two choices: pay back every cent you've stolen, or I take this public and let the world see who you really are." The color drained from Margaret's face, and for a moment, I thought she might collapse. Richard, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. "Rachel, let's be reasonable. This doesn't have to get ugly." "It's already ugly," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "And it's going to get a lot worse unless you take responsibility for what you've done." The silence that followed was deafening. Mike looked like he wanted to disappear, while Margaret clutched her purse as if it could shield her from the weight of my accusations. "We'll talk to our lawyer," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's a good idea," I replied, turning on my heel and walking out of the gallery without looking back. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control, even as my heart ached from the realization that my marriage was truly over. The divorce process was grueling, but it brought a sense of closure I desperately needed. Mike didn't fight me on most of the terms, perhaps realizing he had no leg to stand on. Margaret, of course, tried to interfere, but her influence was waning as the legal consequences of their actions became clear. My lawyer informed me that the authorities were moving forward with their investigation into the financial fraud, and the Thompsons were facing serious repercussions. The day I signed the final divorce papers, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the life I thought I had, for the trust that had been shattered, but relief in knowing I was finally free. I went home that evening and found a package waiting for me on the porch, a box containing our wedding album and a letter from Mike. I hesitated for a long moment before opening the letter. His handwriting was messy, the words hastily scrawled. "Rachel, I'm sorry I wasn't the man you deserved. I wish I could undo the hurt I caused, but I know I can't. I hope one day you can forgive me." The words felt hollow. I folded the letter and set it aside, unable to throw it away just yet. Instead, I took the wedding album to the fireplace, opened it to the first page, and watched as the flames consumed the photos. It felt like letting go of a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild my life. I moved into a small but cozy apartment, started therapy to process everything, and leaned on Sarah and my friends for support. Each day felt a little lighter, a little brighter. The Thompsons' empire of lies continued to crumble, but that was no longer my concern. I had done my part, and now it was time to focus on my own future. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. I was just free. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. And that, more than anything, was the greatest victory of all. As Rachel's journey comes to an end, it leaves us with important lessons about relationships, trust, and the strength it takes to rebuild after betrayal. Her story wasn't just about uncovering financial deceit, it was about rediscovering her worth, learning to stand up for herself, and choosing her own happiness over the expectations and manipulation of others. One of the most powerful takeaways from Rachel's experience is the importance of trust and transparency in any relationship. A marriage, or any partnership, can only thrive when both people are open, honest, and working towards shared goals. When Mike chose to prioritize secrecy and loyalty to his parents over his relationship with Rachel, he broke that foundational trust. And once trust is gone, the relationship becomes unstable, no matter how much love might remain. Rachel's decision to confront the truth and not settle for dishonesty shows us how essential it is to protect the integrity of our partnerships. Another profound lesson from this story is the importance of recognizing and breaking free from manipulation. Margaret's control over Mike and her attempts to guilt Rachel into silence were textbook examples of emotional manipulation. For years, Rachel didn't see the signs, but once she uncovered the full extent of the Thompsons' behavior, she refused to let them continue to hold power over her. This is a reminder to all of us to be vigilant about our boundaries and to recognize when someone's actions, no matter how justified they claim to be, are harmful to our well-being. Perhaps the most inspiring part of Rachel's story is her courage to stand up for herself, even when it felt like everything was falling apart. Walking away from a marriage and exposing the truth wasn't easy for her. She faced judgment, fear, and uncertainty, but she pushed forward. Her bravery serves as a testament to the power of self-respect and the importance of taking control of your life when others are trying to take advantage of you. In the end, Rachel's story reminds us that letting go of what no longer serves you is not just an act of survival, it's an act of strength. It's okay to walk away from toxic relationships, to demand better, and to start over. Rachel may have lost her marriage, but she gained freedom, clarity, and the opportunity to rebuild a life that's entirely her own. That's a victory worth celebrating. So, what do you think about Rachel's journey? Would you have handled things differently? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to fight for your own happiness and freedom? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more gripping, emotional tales like Rachel's, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Your support helps us continue sharing these incredible stories and connecting with our amazing community. Remember, life is full of challenges, but with courage, clarity, and self-respect, you can overcome even the toughest situations. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on AGS Stories.